Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
How you guys doing?
Great.
All right. If you're able to, please stand and join us for worship. Bless the Lord, oh my soul, oh my soul. Worship His holy name. Sing like never before, oh my soul. I'll worship Your holy name. The sun comes up, it's a new day dawning. It's time to sing Your song again. Whatever may pass and whatever lies before me, let me be singing when the evening comes. Bless the Lord, oh my soul, oh my soul. Worship His holy name. Sing like never before, oh my soul. I'll worship Your holy name. You're rich in love and You're slow to anger. Your name is great and Your heart is kind. For all Your goodness I will keep on singing. 10,000 reasons for my heart to find. Bless the Lord, oh my soul, oh my soul. Worship His holy name. Sing like never before, oh my soul. I'll worship Your holy name. And on that day when my strength is failing, the end draws near and my time has come, still my soul will sing Your praise unending. 10,000 years and then forevermore. Bless the Lord, oh my soul, oh my soul. Worship His holy name. Sing like never before, oh my soul. I worship Your holy name. I worship Your holy name. Lord, I want to thank You for this evening. Thank You for this message we're going to hear. I pray that our hearts are open to it, to receive truth. Keep us humble and teachable, Lord. Please take away our pride. And if we think we're right and You show us that we are wrong, please, Lord, help us to change our thinking. And I just pray You're with us. Help us to lift You up in worship right now from a true place of admiration and a true place of love for You, Lord. Strengthen our love for You and help us to put our complete trust in You. And I thank You for this night, Lord, and I praise You in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
The
surrender.
you.
You get me because we're still having some AV problems with our system, and so a lot less entertaining, but I've got a couple things I'm going to run through. One is Ruby's Pantry. We had Ruby's Pantry today, and it was a good day. It was a very hectic day. We had 27 volunteers, which I think is our lowest number ever, to include the beginning of COVID back this time last year. And that, I think we had our lowest numbers then was like 33. And so we were a little short today. We felt it. But God gave us the flow, and it happened, and everyone worked from the beginning all the way to the very end. There was not a lot of downtime, but it was a good day. It was God blessed us with a good day. Had some guys that were outside for 2 or 3 hours or whatever it was out in the rain. It was sprinkling. Had 169. I think 169 was the tally count for the shares given, and which is a pretty good number. That's the highest we've had, but the seemed like the food was very very random. It was tough to get a flow started, but once we figured it out, I thought it went really well. So once again, for anyone who was there for Ruby's, we thank you for coming out for volunteering. I don't think we could have done it with 1 or 2 less. We could have, but it would it would have felt it. So that we had that going on for us, so. Jesse and George, I just wanted to say thank you for opening us up in worship. You guys did a great job. The other reason I'm up here is I want to talk about River Valley Conference. Yeah. Who's heard about River Valley Conference? Hopefully everyone has. If you haven't been there, if you weren't there, the last time we went, we brought 21, 22 people? 23? That's close. In the ballpark, right? So we brought 23 people last time, and a small church. We went down there. We were hanging out with churches that had hundreds and hundreds of people. A couple of them even 1,000 people. That thing, and I think the next closest, I think they were talking was 15 people. And so the fact that we brought 23 people from our little church in Duluth was very exciting. We kind of blended and grew as a team down there. And so if you haven't gone down there, I highly suggest you go. The reasons why. One is it allows you, if you are part of the ministry, and if you're sitting in the seats, you're part of the ministry. There you go. Whether you like it or not, right? So if you're sitting in the seats, you should really think about going. It's a great time. It gets you out of what you know as a church here in Duluth, Minnesota. They kind of go through some things, but basically anything that we do here, they do there. So if you are into children's church, or if you are into worship, if you are into social media, if you are into preaching, if you are into teaching youth, it doesn't matter what it is, they have something for you. We get to fellowship together. They got some great music, a lot of good times together, and then you get to go out and do breakouts in what other aspects of ministry that entices you, right? Or maybe you're part of something that you're doing that I'll say like the soundboard, right? The soundboard, I understand it. I wish I understood it more, because then we would have videos instead of me up here talking. But the soundboard, right? It's something that I know I can figure out. I can walk my way through it. But they have pros that do this, and they can sit down and help you through this. If it's social media, we have a social media position to go down there and learn what people do and how they have a good social media, right? Because as much as we don't like social media, that's how people get their information nowadays. And so if we, as Mission Creek Church, aren't doing social media well, we're not reaching people, right? And so that's definitely been one of the struggles. And one of the pluses for our church during COVID was the fact that we've been able to reach out on social media, do Facebook Live or have YouTube out there and do things like that. But we could do it better, right? And that's what this is all about. It's going down, getting some new, fresh ideas. How are other churches doing this? How are other churches doing small groups? How are other churches doing children's church? How are other churches doing social media, right? And so we can get out there, and it's so exciting. And when we went down there as a group of 23, we did one meal together, and we all sat at this huge table. It was awesome, right? Most of us stayed in the same hotel. I think there was a few outliers they stayed with family or whatever was going on. So anyways, I highly, highly suggest going down to River Valley Conference. One of the hard parts is it's June 7th and 8th, which is the beginning of the week. So if you work during the week, you still have some time to get that time off, right? It does cost something. I don't have all the details and costs and all that, but Debbie is going to be sending something out towards the end of this week that will have all that information in there. Times, costs, registration, how to register under our church, so under our umbrella, and so that you're part of you get part of the group package, right? And we also have the hotel down there, and I don't have the name of the hotel on the top of my head, but once again, that will be coming out in an email later this week, and that'll explain how to register at that hotel in the block of rooms that we were going to have, right? And so if you're going down there, last year, they had a lot of rooms are double queens, and so you can go down there with two families if you really like each other. You can have share a room to cut down costs. If you guys are single or whatever, you can share rooms to cut down on costs. So there's the ability to do that kind of thing also. So and it's great fellowship time. It is great fellowship time. We sat in the hot tub. I don't know if COVID will allow for us to do that this time, but we sat in the hot tub down there for hours, and we were talking with other people from different churches and just bouncing stuff off of each other and talking and fellowshipping. It was a great time. So if you haven't gone, or if you have gone, go again. Okay? That's all I got. Looks like Zach's up next.
Hello. Hello, Zach. I'm Zach. So I just wanted to come up and talk for a couple minutes about what we have going on this fall. Something we've talked about for a long time and heard a lot about, small groups. We're going to be starting small groups this fall. So we're super excited about that because it's a good opportunity for us to build community, more than just on Sundays, but get together during the week. So, this summer we're actually going to be doing I guess you could call it a wannabe small group leader small group. That's not a good term for it, but if you want to be a leader of a small group this fall, or if that's something that God has on your heart, we're going to have a training this summer. So it'll be over 12 weeks. Is that 16 weeks. So the leader training will be over 16 weeks, and we'll be talking about everything from why small groups matter to how to build a study, how to build community. So it'll be crucial for the leaders to be at this training. So it is a requirement. If you do want to be a leader of a small group, you will have to come to this leader small group this summer. So there'll be a sign up in the next couple of weeks in the back, more info to come, but just wanted to shoot it out here really quick that if you have questions about what that training might look like or what small groups might look like, you can talk with Rob or Keith Easty or myself. And we're just working on building what that training will look like. So just be in prayer. If that's something you have on your heart, you want to be a small group leader. If you have no idea what a small group leader is, ask questions, but yeah, super excited that we have that coming up. So thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Am I turned on there?
No.
Good. Soon enough. How's that? Let me know.
A little better.
A little better, a little better? Good. I like when it's nice and projects real loud for you guys. Keeps you wide awake back there, so I don't have to talk quite as loudly. Thanks for the announcements, guys, by the way. I love River Valley. You know, we talked about that. I'm excited about small groups. Anyways, you know, when we do these announcements, remember going to the movie theater back when we did? I haven't been to a movie in a while. But anyways, back when I did, you know, one of the things that I enjoyed about going to the movies was the trailers at the beginning. It was like little mini movies, you know, that get you excited. Like, oh, that's coming up. That looks like a great movie. Well, these are the announcements are like little mini movies for you guys, huh? Get excited to hear this stuff?
Oh, yeah.
All these things are opportunities that God's having. We talked about the fact that we're beginning to now push and roll things out is really us beginning to build momentum that we think will come to a crescendo. Yes, have a crescendo in the fall time. So please consider River Valley. Please consider small groups. Every week now, between now and the time we start, Zach's going to come up and Keith's going to come up and just kind of give you tidbits here and there, because we have found in ministry, what do you have to do to get people to buy in your vision, to be well educated? You have to over communicate, oversell, yeah, whatever that would be, over communicate for sure. So, a couple quick things once again before we get going there. How y'all doing tonight?
Good.
You doing okay?
Tired.
Good, you're very good. You're here. You guys dead tonight? Rubies, yeah. It's exhausting, isn't it?
It's good exhaust.
It is a good exhaustion, yes. I didn't do it though. I sat home because I'm lazy, so. I was working though, I swear. So you know, River Valley Conference, I'm not going to be the dead horse there. I'm excited for Deb to take care of that. Thank you, Sean. You should really sit and talk to some of us one-on-one if you have any questions about that. The Craig study, that's been going well. I think they've had back-to-back weeks of 20 ladies. We talked about it's not just about dealing with cravings. As far as eating goes, we know that our flesh and cravings can, really train wreck a lot of things in our faith. Although somebody did point out how hypocritical my slide was, because the whole idea of cravings is about pushing back cravings, and now we're promoting all this junk food. So forgive me. That's the women. That's what they're doing. So we do have an event tomorrow night. Is that tomorrow, right, or tomorrow afternoon?
Tomorrow afternoon.
Yeah, come on out. It should be a great time. And getting together and beginning to roll this out. We're going to do it every month, and I think they're also going to honor, if you had doesn't matter if you're part of this church or not. In fact, we're encouraging you, if you have a friend that doesn't go to church, but they had a birthday this month, if they come out tomorrow, they'll get a gift. Isn't that exciting? Guys, we are dropping the ball. We should do something like this, but better. Steaks and fishing tackle if you show up.
They approve.
Protein shakes, yes. And VBS, we're not going to get much into that right now. Next week, Brent and I are going to have some information for you guys, how you can help out, what you can pray for, how you can get involved. We really feel like we want to blow this thing up. Okay. We're going to do it in August. We really feel like this is the way to get a lot of families that are disengaged brought back into community and a way to reach new families. So begin to pray about that. But I want to get into tonight's message, so let's pray right now. Heavenly Father, we thank you for your grace and mercy. Father, I pray every weekend, and Lord, I feel like I can't pray it enough. Lord, we want to come before you with an open heart and mind. Father, there's a lot of things that keep us from receiving what you have. Biases we carry, distractions we bring into the building, sometimes pride, offense, a hardness of heart, apathy, Father, whatever it is, I don't know, Father, we all are here today and everybody has a different need. Lord, we all come here at different levels of Christian maturity. But Father, I will pray that your Spirit would begin to minister to each one according to our need. Lord, remove the distractions, speak to our hearts, soften our hearts. Lord, I pray that we would take these words and not just intellectually understand them, but put them into practice. Father, we talked about the 4 levels of learning, how we often get stuck at number 3, but it's not till number 4 that it's not just enough to know, but we're going to live these things out. We want to do that. Father, we thank you for all the wonderful things that Nehemiah taught us, the things to look for and be mindful of. Lord, the whole purpose of this is to rebuild. And really what we're building is your kingdom for your glory. And we want to reach people for that. And Lord, we need you for that. So we give you tonight, we give our lives, and we pray this, Father, in Jesus' name. Amen. So as you guys know, I've been kind of recapping some things, going around. Here's what I've talked about. If you guys remember anything from my message. But I'm not going to do that tonight. I'm going to pause on the recapping. And we're going to recap the entire series the last day that we do it. We'll get into everything that we had discussed. And I want to say this week I was praying, and I mentioned it last week, but God answered my prayer this week.
Amen.
He did. I mean, he does all the time, but he really answered specifically about the message. So after teaching, as we've been doing, I think, I don't know, was it 6 or 7 weeks now? And we've been looking at text, and we've been trying to go in order. We felt God led us to Nehemiah. We want to go after verse, with the understanding that God led us to Nehemiah, and then the Holy Spirit had inspired these words specifically for a reason. And if I begin to vary off of that because it felt redundant, or maybe I didn't like the topic, or got tired of saying the same thing because it looked like just time after time there was a lot of the same things, if I did that, took that upon myself to vary off, I'm essentially acting as if I have better insight or understanding that God is spirit. You don't know that's not a good thing, right? There's a reason why we talk about topical preaching is good, but expository preaching allows us to make sure that our biases don't get in the way. Does that make any sense?
Yep.
Because we all have theological biases. Things we like to look at, study, or not study, or things we don't want to hear. But if we decide that we're going to go through verse by verse, that's what we've done. We said, okay, if it's there, God, we're going to go through it. So for that reason, last few weeks, we were looking at all the different angles. Nehemiah wants to rebuild, so we looked at how he's being attacked, things we need to guard our heart against, guard the church against as we rebuild. But I have to admit that last week, I really wanted to move on. I was like, God, please let it not be another chapter of just different attacks and what's going on. And then I opened up this week and praise God, the theme is different. Amen? So I'm praising God for that. But I've had to come back like, oh, God, here he goes again. Rob's saying the same thing. But you know, I feel that too. I really do. I feel that from week to week when I preach. But I really try to have the discipline to say, God, if it's there, then so be it. Obviously, there's a reason why you feel the need to talk to. And I will say this to you guys. There's times where I thought, this is so redundant. But then sure enough, 2 days after we said something, maybe the 4th or 5th time, sure enough, somebody in this church needed to hear that. So I'm reminded that I'm trusting God with this. This week we're going to be in Nehemiah chapter 6, verse 15, and then we'll go to chapter 7. And that's where we're going to pick up. So here we are. Verse 15. So the wall was finished, and the repairs took 52 days. And it happened that all of our enemies heard of it, and all the nations saw the things, that they were disheartened in their own eyes, for they perceived that this work was done by our God. So I want to stop right there. I just want to take a moment to praise God because the rebuilding happened in spite of, or despite of all the attacks. Just say,
Amen.
praise Jesus. Can we say that?
Praise Jesus.
So, you know what? Everything, they throw everything at them. I'm going to try to dissuade any way they can, but it doesn't matter because God allows his people to live victoriously. They completed in 52 days. Even in today's standards, that is a miracle. You know that?
Mm-hmm.
Could you imagine doing that today? An entire city, redo a wall. We couldn't do it today. And back then, they didn't have heavy equipment. They had no excavators. Okay? They couldn't bring that in. They could jump in their trucks and 4x4s and just drive over to Menards or wherever you go to get your materials. They had rubbish in the way. They had constant threats and distractions. On and on. There were so many obstacles. There's a ton of reasons why it should never happen, and certainly never happened in 52 days. Man, praise God.
Them rocks didn't look alike either.
What's that?
Them rocks did not look alike.
They didn't. No, this is not for the faint of heart. Us bad Americans would be in trouble if that happened. Except for Jared, he'd be fine. And Jesse, too. Jesse works out. Rich, too. Who else am I missing? But I'm saying the right person after that, like, well, I work out. You work out or not, okay? That's not exactly to get your exercise, okay? For all those that work out. So it's an impossible task that they had taken on that clearly only God could have finished. Nehemiah said here that the people that were watching this, their enemies, perceived that this work was done by God. So as I went through it this week, my first point of consideration for all of us, I want you to listen to this and consider this deeply. Okay? In your life, in your ministry, do you step out in faith in such a way that is evident to everybody that it would take God to accomplish it, that you could never do it on your own? Do you? Or you play it safe? Because if you play it safe, God cannot get glory from you. So that's what I want to challenge you to say. If you live your life, you step out, are you looking at your ministry, whatever it is, that you stretch yourself in such a way that it looks like you're insane, and everybody knows there's no way this is going to come to fruition unless God does a miracle. I have a question for you today. Now, you all read the Bible, right? You've all read it? In the Bible, was it the people that played it safe and conservative that pleased God and Jesus, right? They're the ones that he was like, man, I love your conservativeness.
No.
Jesus loved caution and calculation instead of radical faith. In fact, I remember many times Jesus saying, whoa, Peter, relax all that crazy faith. But that's not what you see at all, is it? God loved radical faith. Jesus did say, let it be done to you according to your logic and calculated reasoning. Did he? But isn't that how we make life decisions? Or if we risk it, we risk it safely. I've often talked about when I left. Can I confess something I never confessed? I've often talked about how I left the prison and I didn't have a job. You guys heard that story, right? I just quit. People are like, you can't do that. You got a family. I'm like, I'm quitting. I trust God. But I've often wondered how much faith that took, because what I didn't tell you is one thing that we did do is God led us to cash out my retirement. Right? God said cash out your retirement. And we figured out that we had enough money in there that we could live probably for a couple months. So did it take faith to step out without a job? Sure. But I often think, God, I wonder if you wanted even more radical faith, because even in that radical faith, I had a safety net. You guys step out in a way where there's no safety net? That it's so extreme that it's going to take God to do it, and when he does do it, God alone will get glory? Anybody feel like you need to maybe have a little more faith and step out more radically? Raise your hand. Yeah. Like, I think we need to start believing faith for our God. Hebrews 11:6 says, this says, without faith it's impossible to please God. Okay? It doesn't say it's difficult to please God. It is impossible. In fact, it says for us as believers, because I think we view faith this way. We say, okay, yeah, I have faith in Jesus, so I'm living by faith, but that's not what it's referring to. And yes, we have faith in Jesus, but it says a believer from faith to faith, the just shall live by their faith. It means that our life should permeate living by faith for the glory of God. There's so many examples in the Bible of radical faith. People who are stepping out and they're risking it all in a way that only God can do it. I think about Peter in the boat. And I heard a pastor say one time, referring to Peter, and how we could be like, I can't believe he took his eyes off of Jesus and got wet. He said, I'd rather be a wet water walker than a dry boat talker. Right? Isn't that how it is in life? But it's true. What about David with Goliath? Or the woman who had the issue of blood? I could go on and on and on. The one thing that seemed to frustrate Jesus often was a lack of faith. And the one thing that he loved was people that had extreme faith. This work took a lot of faith. Now this is a verse that I think is very challenging to me. Romans 14 says that whatever is not done in faith is what? Sin. That is pretty extreme, isn't it? He's saying if you ain't doing it in faith, then you're in sin. That means your finances, your servitude to God, how you order your steps, the decisions that you make, all of it should be done in faith. So when's the last time that you did something that was humanly impossible, that would require divine intervention for you to succeed? Pretty challenging, isn't it? Here's the thing, though. I think if we're all being honest, we all probably fall in that category of God, I need to start having more faith. But God's not trying to make you feel bad. He just wants to challenge you. Like a good workout partner that says, hey, you know what, you're doing well, but I think you could do another rep. I think you could step out with more faith. I think you could stretch yourself even more. That's the first thing that I read that I really thought about. And when we play it safe, when we think small, how can God get glory if it can be explained away by human reasoning? So I think it's time that God is saying, hey, it's time that the church, and I'm not saying Mission Creek, I'm talking about the universal church, start to have some faith. The next point that I thought about when I went through this week is this. When we talk about people share our faith or whatever, we often think that people's resistance to God or resistance to the gospel is maybe due to their ignorance or maybe lack of understanding. And we'll think, once they see that, I'm successfully living out my faith, or they'll see this venture that I step out on when it works out or it bears fruit. Once they see that, they'll realize that it was God in my life working, and they're going to be won over. And they'll be won over, and they're going to change their stance about God and Christianity. Once they see it work out, they'll convince it was God. But here it says this. They saw it, they are convinced it's a work of God, and they are still disheartened. They are upset. Don't you think that would humble them to realize this was a work of God? But they're not humbled by it. They're still angry. They admit, God did this, and we are mad. See, what most people don't realize it, but they're not resisting Christians. You know who they're really resisting? They're resisting God. You know, I've heard people say that I love God, I just don't love his people. Now, I get that. There are hypocrisies. There are things that we do that give God a bad name. But in some situations, what they don't realize is the reason why they hate that believer is they hate what that believer represents and the values that he has. Now, here's why it's important, I think, for you and I to remember that as we look at this lesson here. Okay? You have to remember to protect your heart against discouragement. Because if you don't get that, if you always think that people really want to know God, they really love God, they'll be won over once they see the fruit of our lives, for example, and then when they're not won over, you'll get disillusioned and confused. You'll start to think, well, what did I do wrong? Okay? Because they're not getting saved, and they're not coming to church, they're not a Christian. And so we can get discouragement. Or two, you can waste your time continually trying to win somebody over who's never going to be won over. So I remember early in my faith, I had really two areas of frustration. My family. I really thought they were going to see the change in me, and they'd be won over. I'm not perfect, but I'm trying to do the right thing. But what I noticed, the stronger that my faith got, the more they hated, and the more they acted like I was insane. They weren't won over. They're not like, well, here's a guy that used to be really self-centered, but now he's really trying to put people first, love his family, he goes to church instead of going out to the bars. Good for him. That's not what they thought. Oh, who's a self-righteous guy I think that he is now? Mm-hmm. And then the other thing that I would do is when somebody didn't come to Jesus, I would take the blame on myself. I would think, you know what? Obviously I didn't quote the right verse. Obviously I didn't have the right apologetic and the right arguments. Obviously my life must not have reflected Christ well enough to them because obviously they're not coming. So I would feel really terrible and I would be discouraged. Can anybody relate to this?
Amen.
So you start to beat yourself up, and I want you to know that sometimes you've done all that you can do, and it has nothing to do with you. Because many people simply hate God just like they did. They knew it was a work of God, and they were upset still. Just remember that so you don't take on condemnation. And I would say this too, we as believers, we have to love the lost. I don't care how much somebody resists God, we have to always have hope and believe that Jesus can reach the most darkest soul. Do you guys believe that?
Yeah.
We have to believe that. And you must never give up hope, but you also have to be wise. Because there are some people and situations that you can waste time, energy, and emotions with somebody who's just not going to be won over. You know, I remember years ago when we started here, and the churches, went through some things, and people kind of left and were scattered. And, when I first started, like, we got to get this family back to church, and that family's got to come back to church. And so I was trying, but it just seemed clear that for whatever reason, this family didn't want to come back to church. I don't know why. But these people like, let's go after them and go after them. I'm like, well, we are. I showed up. I invited their kids. We're trying. And they don't want to. But I'm thinking, but we have new families coming. What if we poured into them? As opposed to this other family that may not ever come back. Right? So you have to be careful how we use our time and resources on people that maybe are just never going to get it. Okay? Any fishermen here? Anybody fish? I said, Dean, I know you fish. I didn't say if you're good. I just said, do you fish? This is like the workout thing. Guys get afterwards like, wow, we're good fishermen. No, I'm just kidding. So you guys know you all fish. I like to fish. I don't do as much as I used to. But Jesus said this. He said, follow me and I will make you fishers of men. That's what God wants us to do, right? To go after men and women, to go after their hearts, to bring them to Jesus. But using the fishing analogy, right? What happens if you're not catching fish? Let's say you take your ice house out there to be in the season, you put it down, and man, the first couple of weeks you're down there and you are not getting anything. What are you probably do with your ice house?
Move it,
You're
try
gonna-
different lures.
You're going to move it, try different lure?
Bait.
Yeah. Same thing in the summertime. You're out there in your boat, you drop anchor, and you're just fishing, you're casting. Now goes by nothing. What are you going to do? You're going to move. And you're going to try somewhere else fishing where you're going to get some hits. See, going after people is very much that same way. We always want to have hope, but there are some people that are not just ready for Jesus. So we have to love them, pray for them, but sometimes you got to move on. And that's what I'm reminded here. In Luke chapter 10, Jesus really affirms this about the need to go after people. He says, the harvest is great, but the laborers are few. Therefore, pray to God that he would send laborers into his harvest. Sorry. God said we need to pray. There's so many people that don't know Jesus. We need to pray to God that he would send evangelists and people out there to share truth, right? So he compels us, but then later on, a couple verses later, he gives us some wisdom. He's like, you need to go. He says, but know this, in verse 10. If you enter a city and they don't receive you, or they don't receive the message, go out into the streets and say to the people, the very dust of your city which clings to us we wipe off against you. Nevertheless, know this, the kingdom of God has come near you. He's saying, you know what? If they're not going to receive it, wipe the dust off your feet and move on. Okay? Sometimes you just got to move on. And we have to find people whose hearts are open. And we invest in them. We pray for everybody. Okay? But be wise, because I don't know about you, but I have limited time, energy, and emotions. Do you guys have that? Yeah. So I want to use my time and gifting for God, my emotions, in the most fruitful way. Now in verse 17 it continues. It says, in those days the nobles of Judah sent letters to Tobiah, and the letters to Tobiah came to them. For many in Judea were pledged to Tobiah, because he was related to many of the Jewish nobles. Also they reported his good deeds before me, and reported my words to him. Tobiah sent letters to frighten me. So here he is again, just kind of touching on this whole thing about Tobiah and the resistance and what's happening. And he's saying, hey, they got letters, I got letters, all these things are happening. And at the end he says, Tobiah was trying to frighten me. Now, why did Nehemiah do this? Because the build is done. The wall's complete. You know, in a sense, he won, or should we say God won. In many ways, Nehemiah is moving on, but he still is going to take a moment here to document this in the official record. Okay? Like, he could have been like, they lost. Suckers. But he takes a moment to document this. Now here's a commentary by John MacArthur on that text, and here's what John MacArthur said. So the nobles of Judah sent many letters to Tobiah. Nehemiah added this footnote about the nobles who refused to work, who were in alliance and corresponded with Tobiah. Because many of them were related to Tobiah, these Jewish nobles, because of their relationship, blurred the lines, they created compromise. They tried to play both sides through reports to Tobiah and to Nehemiah. But this only widened the breach and helped Tobiah try to escalate efforts to attack Nehemiah and stop the work. Why is he adding this? Because Nehemiah knows that the narrative can be twisted. He knows that Tobiah can still slander, attack, and Nehemiah wants to get it all out in the open. He wants to make sure that when the dust settles, the wall's done, people start coming to the city, he wants them to guard against Tobiah. He's like, just make sure you guard against this guy. Don't forget what he did. What's the old saying? Names are changed to protect the innocent. Names are not changed to protect the guilty, are they? Okay? Names are not changed to protect the guilty. And so, I think it's important when we talk about ministry that we should forgive people. We need to have grace, but protecting people matters. It's not uncommon in the Bible to call people out by name publicly. Did you know that? Many examples: Hymenaeus, Philetus, Diotrephes, Alexander the coppersmith. In fact, in 2 Timothy, listen to this. Paul is speaking about Alexander the coppersmith, and here's what he said. He did me much harm. May the Lord repay him according to his works. You need to be aware of him, for he's resisted our words. He's saying, let's be careful of this guy. Now Nehemiah continues, and here's what he said. He said, then it was when the wall was built, and I hung the doors, I hung the gatekeepers, and there were singers. The Levites had been appointed to the rolls. Then I gave charge of Jerusalem to my brother, and assigned a leader to the citadel. He was a faithful man who feared God more than many. And then I said, do not let the gates of Jerusalem be open until the sun is hot, while they stand guard. Let them shut the door and the bars, and appoint guards from the inhabitants of Jerusalem, one at his station and another in front of his own house. So here's what he does. Now he's hanging the doors and the gates. He said the wall's complete. But he tells the people, he gives them an order to say, don't open the gates until later in the day. Now this was not customary. Normally they would get open bright and early. But he did it to prevent any possible attacks. He wanted to make sure they were not caught off guard. And it was really a precaution to protect them. Now, even though the wall's done, it's been built, he knows the enemy won't quit. Now, he's not doing this because of fear. He's doing it out of prudence. Because he's a man who does trust God. But he also wants to be prudent. That's what's happening here. Then Nehemiah, he assigns people, it said. And this is key. This is something that we need to get in our culture today. I don't care if you're hiring somebody for your job, a cop or doctor, or whatever it is, you name it, in ministry. When he hires people, he chooses character first. He says right here, he was a faithful man who feared God. That's what he said. After all, if we remember correctly, if you go back 70 years or more, it was a lack of godly character. It was a lack of fear of God that got Israel into trouble many years before, didn't it? Like that was the very thing that got them into bondage, the very thing that caused them to get into the hands of the Babylonians where God had to judge them. So now he's going to make sure that, hey, I want to hire some people, but I want character. I want them to be faithful and to fear God. And I tell you what, there are so many Christians, the government, or even the entertainment industry that gets into trouble because of our propensity to love gifting and charisma. And that gifting and charisma will often blind us, and we overlook character deficiencies, and it leads to a ton of trouble, doesn't it? It happens all the time. And what we do is we somehow think that charisma and charisma and gifting, that must be the Spirit. But in a lot of cases, it's not. And a prime example of that is we're finding out with Ravi Zacharias. What a tragedy. But I could give all sorts of examples, but it's so important that we focus, not only in our lives, in our ministries, whatever we do, we have to look at character because that matters more than anything.
Amen.
Now here's where I get excited about the message. This is where I read it this week. I'm like, oh, praise God, a different direction. It's verse 4. It says, the city was large and spacious, okay? But the people in it were few, and the houses were not rebuilt. So they built this beautiful wall. People can now be saved. The temple is rebuilt. Everything's good. But what is missing in the city? People are missing. People are what's missing. It continues in verse 5. Nehemiah said, then God put it in my heart to gather the nobles, the rulers, and the people, that they might be registered by genealogy. And I found a register of genealogy of those who had returned. These are the people of the province who came back from captivity, those who had been carried away, whom Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, had carried away, who returned to Jerusalem and Judah, everyone to his city. Then it goes from verse 7 to verse 63, and it's this long genealogy. I chose not to break that down. Are you okay with that?
Yes.
Thank you. And it lists a bunch of names. And it went on to say that the list of all the names was 42,360 people. Just a side note here, unrelated. You don't know who Nick Olson is, but I know you do. He's a guy who gets fired up for Jesus. He'd be like Jared, and you'd just be excited, like, oh, dude, you should see what I read. You should look at this. So I get to work at Teen Challenge years ago, and he's like, man, I found this in the Bible. It's crazy. You got to see this. I'm like, cool. So I sit down. He flips open his genealogy. He starts to read it. And I'm like, okay, cool. Get to the point. Get to the point. Just like you guys do with my preaching. But I got the mic now. So he's just going through. I'm like, man, what is he getting at? What's the point? And you're just reading it. And after a while, I'm like, man, I'm getting impatient. We got work to do. And now he starts smirking. I realized he just started to read the genealogy just to say how long I'd sit and listen to him. So give him back for that, by the way. Please. So they do their work, right? The wall is beautiful, it's complete, it's safe. Now it's time for all these people that work so hard for a hard-earned rest and vacation, right? No. All that hard work and rebuilding the wall, why did they rebuild it? For people's safety. That was the number one reason. It wasn't just so we could say, look, we have a beautiful wall. So now the rebuilding shifts from what I would say projects to people. All that work was so that they could focus on people. Right? That's the part of ministry that I love. Because sometimes we get other stuff that we have to do that are important, but I want to focus on people. And that's what I love right here, this shift. And Nehemiah says there's a lack of people in the city. Yeah, we got a wall now. That's great. We need some people here. So I thought about where we are in our rebuild. You know, a lot of churches in America, it's been a tough year. Lost people to fellowship. We're trying to regain it back. So we've done a lot in the past year. We have now painted. We've got new volunteers that are ready. We redid the nursery. It looks beautiful back there. We got a children's area, front entry we've done some work in. We hung a TV in the back. We resolved some cultural issues here, leadership things. So now we're good. We can relax over the summer, right? No. Just like Nehemiah, we have to shift from prep and repairs to focusing on anybody?
People.
People.
The real work begins.
Now the real work begins, but this is the good work, right? This is the exciting work, to focus on people. And that's what it's all about. And if you're not excited about people, I don't know, man. Something's wrong with you. And so the shift and rebuilding. The focus is now to people, and this is exciting. It wasn't just about having a nice wall. The wall was created for the people, to protect the people. Now back in Nehemiah's time, back then, it was all about people. But that's no different when Jesus arrived, was it? Because Jesus didn't come back so we could have nice buildings, programs, and to keep our traditions intact. Jesus came back for people, for the lost, for the Great Commission. The Great Commission is about reaching people. In fact, ministry is all about people. That's what it's all about, people. I love this verse here. Commonly, you've heard it many times. For God so loved the world, He gave His only begotten Son, right? Whoever believes shall, not perish but have everlasting life. For He did not send His world to condemn the world, but the world through Him might be saved. Like, that's His desire, is to save people. That's why He came down here. So, as a church, as we rebuild, as we move forward, yes, the number one thing that we should do whenever we do anything is do it for the glory of God. Okay? Everything we do should be for the glory of God, but doesn't God get the most glory when people get saved?
Amen.
Doesn't God get the most glory when lives are being transformed? When people become trophies of His grace? When people can begin to brag on God for His amazing love and the power to change lives? God does not get glory from empty buildings. He just simply does not. There's no glory in keeping a dead building, a dead religion moving forward. God loves people and He desires all people to be saved. 2 Timothy, God desires all men to save and come to the knowledge of the truth. And in 2 Peter it says that God does not want that any should perish. And that's why He's long-suffering, okay? Just hoping and pleading and waiting and giving people time that they may come to saving faith in Christ Jesus. So for us, as we talk about rebuilding, the shift from projects to people, it should create what I would call a filter or a mindset. It's a way of thinking that should permeate our ministries. A way of thinking that should be in our DNA, in all of our discussions, in our meetings, and every decision we make, there should be a shift in thinking, and here's what it should be. If it's all about people, then we're making decisions, moving forward, doing things, should be how, you know what? How does this love people? This decision. How does this reach people? How does this make people feel comfortable here? How does this increase the likelihood that people, the next generation, will come here and come to know Jesus and make this their community? How is this decision going to increase the likelihood or opportunity for them to hear God's word, to hear the gospel, to get it preached and get saved? We have to make it, if it's about people, then all of our decisions should be about what?
People.
Reaching people. Including how we design buildings sometimes, how we paint, things we do. It should be in the mindset of, how can I be more effective to reach people? We are not a holy huddle. We don't build safe walls so we can hide and just bide our time until Christ returns. That's not what we're called to do. In fact, everything that we are told is to go. Go to the world. Go preach the gospel. Go make disciples. It's go, not hide. It's go out into the world. That's why that sign out there is a reminder every time you walk out that door that you are entering your mission field. You go to the gas station, it's a mission field. Neighbor's house, friend, you name it. Every interaction is, you know what? When you're on social media, that's also a mission field, you know that? Everything is. We're to let our light shine before men. We're not to hide it. What's that kid song? I didn't grow up in a church, was it?
That might have shine light or.
Yeah, we know that kids. And how'd you get up and sing it, please?
Yeah.
But there's this kid song, like, don't hide it, let it shine. So I think what modern day religion can do is we can rebuild the wall for the sake of the wall. And then everything is about protecting and maintaining the wall. The proverbial, oh my God, what if the wall gets nicked? What if the wall gets ruined? What if people stand on the wall? That can happen. There's a mindset there. And let me explain what I mean by that. That we can have this proverbial rebuilding the wall for the sake of the wall. People can have church traditions, religious structures or buildings. And like the Pharisees, we begin to pervert the purpose of it. So let me ask this question on Sabbath. Okay? They were so preoccupied with Sabbath. Don't break the Sabbath. Don't break the commandments. Don't do this. Don't do that. Was the Sabbath created for men, or was men created to serve the Sabbath? Yeah. Sabbath is for us. God said, I created this for you. But the Pharisees come along and they flip it, they pervert it, and now they take something that was meant to help people and minister to people, and they made it a burden that was never meant to be. See, that can happen a lot of times with our traditions. It can happen with a lot of things that were meant to help people, and now are brought into bondage. Now, the Pharisees, they hated change. Their traditions meant more than the people that they were served. They forgot that all this was about the people. Jesus is like, man, you forget all about the people. I want to heal somebody, which you should be excited that I'm doing, but you're more worried about how that violates your traditions. Mark chapter 2, it says, no one puts old wine in new wineskins, or else the old wine will burst, and the wine is spilled, and the wineskins are ruined. The new wine is put in a new wineskin, and Luke, it says, they always say, well, the old is better. Talking about the old covenant and the new covenant, traditions versus what Christ was wanting to do. And then he looked at the Pharisees, he says, why do you, the Pharisees looked at Jesus and said, why are you doing what's not lawful to do? Why are you breaking the Sabbath? And he said, the Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. Traditions like Sabbath keeping or buildings, this building is meant to serve the people. Would you agree with that? We are not here to serve the building. Now, there are things we want to maintain, we want to respect, and be good stewards. But that building is serve the people. That's why I've never cared if we use this to watch a football game. Right? Some people act like, you can't not in the sanctuary, it's the Holy of Holies. That's why I don't care if kids go in the back. I don't want them to write in the walls, but if they do, you know what, I'm at least glad we have kids here. Because the building is meant to serve the people. And by the way, you know what the Holies of Holies in the New Testament? Where does the Holy Spirit reside? In a building?
In our temple.
And people, man. I thought I heard somewhere that's about people. Right? So I love this. So, what would happen is traditions like Sabbath buildings that were meant to serve the people gets twisted, and oftentimes it's done under the guise of being righteous. So I got an opportunity to go teach in a village missions conference out in New York years ago, and I got to teach on change. Seems like we've done a lot of change here in 9 years, hasn't it? Maybe God will hear us season or not. But I quoted the movie. Anybody see Moana? Anybody have kids or grandkids? My granddaughters played it all the time. They loved it. And so in this thing, the island is dying. And the girl's trying to save the island, and she's trying to save the people. Okay? And she's thinking about going outside the island and trying something different. But they didn't want a chance changing anything. And at one point, they begin to sing her this song. Okay? Once again, this girl's trying to help save the island. And they sang, and the song was, "Tradition is our mission." You guys remember that song? Yes. Tradition's our mission. But that's how a lot of churches operate. Like somehow keeping the past tradition at all costs is all that matters. But tradition is not our mission. Our mission is reaching what? People. That's our mission. That's the Great Commission. And village missions, when they go around, we're no longer with them, it's still a good organization. When they go around, when churches are blessed, like, hey, we want you to send a pastor here, would you? We don't have a pastor, the church is dying. They will come and they will interview the congregation. They will ask them, well, why should we send a pastor? And they said if a church says to them, well, man, this church has been here for years, or this building's been here for years, they say, we won't send somebody. What they want to hear is that we want a gospel presence in the community. That's the right answer. They don't care about how long the church building's been there, how long the church has been there. They care about the heart of reaching people. So I've mentioned in the past that we want to make sure that we are creating like a family-friendly culture here. I want church to be warm so that kids equate church to a loving place. I want them to feel welcome rather than viewed as nuisances, because that can happen. And there's a guy now who just really irritated the kids. I might have mentioned it before, but I'm going to continue hammering repetitiveness, overkill, right? And I tried to explain to him that your approach in your inordinate reverence for the building wasn't welcoming, and it makes people and kids not feel like this is a warm place. And he said he didn't care. And I said, well, I do, so I'm glad you're not part of our church anymore. Can I say that?
Yeah, you can.
Because people matter.
Yeah.
This building doesn't matter so much. I mean, I love it, I like it, but it's about people. God, it's so much about people. You guys getting this at all?
Oh, yeah.
Amen.
This may sound silly, but that mindset is more common in Christians than you think. And I actually joked around, I've said this, but I was pretty much serious. I said, if this ever accidentally gets broken, this stained glass, I said, I'm going to have to resign. Because some people are losing their mind. But should they?
Oh.
Because we would never intentionally do it, but it could happen. Sure, we almost did it. We almost put your elbow through it one time.
Maybe, yeah.
Remember you moving that big cabinet?
I heard you say that.
Yeah, nothing. He was actually doing good work, but I'm like, God, please don't put your elbow through there. It's going to be the death of me. The building serves the people. Okay, we must reverence God and people's hearts, not structures, not traditions. Okay? But I understand to some degree why this would be scary. Okay, and here's the final thing I want to get to. If this is all you get from this weekend, if this is the only thing to remember, then man, then I've done my job. But I get it, they rebuilt the wall, they put a lot of hard work in, they don't want it to be ruined. Okay? I got your attention now? Yeah. We've covered many rebuilding principles the past 7 weeks or so. We talked about ownership, that we all have to take ownership and be part of the solution. We talked about how logistics matter, that we have to have a plan. It's not going to happen just because you want it to happen, right? Okay? We talked about that there's a lot of work to do, but that many have light work, that we all have to do our part. We also talked about how God, just like another time, might ask us to get out of our comfort zone. We talked about how success requires sacrifice. You guys remember me talking about those? You agree with all those? Raise your hand if you agree with those things that we discussed. Everybody? Everybody? Hands up. Thank you. This just shows me you're paying attention. Helps my fragile self-esteem when you engage me, so thank you. So we shift in our rebuilding from projects to people. Remembering those principles that we talked about, now what are you going to do to sacrifice, to get out of your comfort zone, to be part of the solution, to be willing to do your part to reach people? Oh, I don't want to talk about those principles before. How's that going to apply to this? It does. So now we're shifting to people. But you all agree that you should sacrifice, get out of your comfort zone, do your part, all these sort of things. So then I would ask you, now what are you going to do to reach people? Right?
My house, love on women.
Yes. Some of you do it well. Some of you do it a lot. You know, others, maybe they're uncomfortable. So we have to do our part, every single one of us. James 1:22, be doers of the word, not hearers only. This is where the rubber meets the road. If we're going to really take the heart of rebuilding in these principles. Nehemiah said that he had it in his heart to want those people back into the city. What's in my heart? What's in your heart? If people are in our heart, we can't help but go after them. And my final thing today I'll say is this. Rebuilding shifts to people. And it was getting people back into the city. And this is great. You get to come back to the city. Everybody, I'm sure, is celebrating. But bringing people back to the city is going to create issues. I want to ask you, what do people do that live in close quarters and community? What do they do?
Get along perfectly.
They get along perfectly, yes. Whatever you're smoking or drinking, please give me some. People that live in close quarters and community, you know what they do?
Fight.
They fight. They get offended. They get irritated. They do what people do. And just say, and that includes all of us, people are stupid.
People are stupid.
Oh, that was pretty weak.
They have moments.
They have moments, yeah. So here's the thing. You're going to bring people back. It's going to create issues. People fight. They get argued. Maybe there's going to be sanitation issues, maybe food shortages. I don't know. There'll be conflicts of all sort of shapes and sizes because people are bent on being offended and offending. That's what we do. Right, Tim?
Yes.
It's what people do. I've been offended. I'll say, raise your hand if I've offended you. Don't do that. If you have a problem, talk to Jared or somebody else. But we've all done it, right? So before they come back, right now the city's good. The wall's built. They lack congestion. They have space. It's clean, less chaotic. The walls look nice. There's order. It's quiet. But God's will was to bring the people back. My last point today on rebuilding. Get this deep inside of your heart. Man, it is about people. And Mission Creek Church, we're going to make it about people. But people are messy. Okay? I can't wait to focus on people in this church, to reach people, to get them back, to reach new people, but people are messy. Okay? But if we really desire to reach people, you have to understand that it's going to come with some ickiness. And I remember talking to many pastors, and I don't even know, man, this drives me nuts. I've never heard this here, praise God. But I remember a couple of pastors in this area even who said, man, our youth group is growing. We're getting kids coming off the streets, joining our youth group and being there. And then some of the parents started to complain, like, well, what would happen if these kids off the street affect our kids? Maybe they shouldn't come to youth groups. I want to just pray for those people. Like, shouldn't it be good if that unbelieving kid is coming to youth group?
Yeah.
I can't believe that there are parents out there like, well, what if it affects my kid? What if that kid gets saved?
Yeah.
Is your parenting and your God so weak that you can't have that? Oh, I remember years ago at Teen Challenge, we would travel around with guys, and people would just be like, man, I love the guys, and they're amazing, they're great. Oh, they just, glow over them. There's one lady who would say that, I love them, man. Oh, they're so awesome, wonderful. But she also went on to talk about how she needed a bunch of trees falling on her property, like 100. That's a lot of trees to drop, by the way, cut up. And I said, hey, I'll take a group of guys there, we'll do it for you for free. All we ask is one, feed them, take care of them, have some drinks, whatnot. Well, then all of a sudden, these guys that she loves, she's like, they be in my house. These guys, some of them criminals. They're going to be in, I'm like, yeah, so? I think they're great guys. You see, we often want great things, but we don't want to be part of the mess. Are you willing to be part of the mess to see somebody come to know Jesus? Are you willing to let somebody be icky and offend and do those things because you love them? And Jesus said this, the Spirit of God is upon me, is anointed me to preach the gospel to the poor, to heal the brokenhearted, proclaim victory to captives, to recover the sight of the blind, to set at liberty those who are oppressed, to proclaim the acceptable year of the Lord. That has been passed on to the church of Jesus Christ. I want messy. Now, I don't want to stay messy. I want to go from messy to transformed and changed, and people set free. But do you think people that are coming here, if that's a desire to get people like that, if this is truly a hospital, do you think people that are spiritually blind, broken, in bondage, poor, do you think they're going to bring baggage and create issues? Yes. But it's still about people. If we are people focused, we have to remember, okay? And we have to prepare the fact that people are messy. They'll have issues, they'll have baggage, they'll have unchristlike behaviors. They won't know church etiquette because they haven't been here. Yes, there are things that need to change in their life, but let's remember that we are also messy ourselves, and we are sinful. And somewhere along the line, God or somebody loved us enough to deal with our mess, to be patient with our sin and our foolishness. And I praise God that they were over to see beyond that in me and to see a heart that loved me. God loved me. Are you willing to get messy for the kingdom of God? And I can't wait to reach out. And by the way, I can't wait to see who you are going to reach. I mean, obviously, Molly, Jared, don't stop, okay? But I want to hear from the rest of you. Who are you going to bring to church? Bible study, out for coffee, small group. I guarantee you, right now in your life, there's somebody. In fact, what a great way to start this. If it's a shift from project to people, next week we have a pretty big thing happening in Christianity, don't we?
Oh, yeah.
It's like the Super Bowl of Christianity. Or the Stanley Cup, whatever your analogy you want. It's Easter weekend, Resurrection weekend. Isn't that a great time to bring somebody new to church?
Yeah.
Okay? Don't look to somebody else to do it. You do it. I know it's going to be hard. I know it'll get us out of our comfort zone. But man, let God use you. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you.
Amen.
Startled me. Father, we thank you so much for your grace and mercy. Father, we thank you that you focus on people. On us. Lord, I thank you in my life. You look beyond my mess, my ick, my mess. Father, it says that Jesus died while we were yet sinners. I can't even begin to imagine why you'd be compelled to do that. But Father, we thank you for that love. Father, we want that love and that to go out to other people. Lord, help us to be a ministry that never forgets, a church that never forgets, Lord, to focus on people and to reach people, Father. Yes, rebuilding is great, projects are great, but Father, I can't stop there. Lord, I pray that you protect our heart and minds against discouragement, because we talked about that. I know this week, some of them there today will be excited to do this, but the enemy will try to cause fear in their heart. He will try to cause them to back out. But Lord, I pray that you empower them by your Holy Spirit. Give them a boldness, give them a courage, and give them a deep love for the lost, Father. Lord, we praise you, we thank you, and we pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Please stand and join us for our last song. Hey, Rob, that was a good sermon.
Thank you, Jesse.
Almost like you've done this before.
Is Jesse be nice to me? What is going on here?
I'm trying to throw you off. All right.
It's all people, right?
All right, some of you may or may not know this song. If you don't, try to follow along, but focus on the lyrics, and I think it's one I want to introduce, in the future. So. You feel the world is broken, we do. Do you feel the shadows deepen? We do. But do you know that all the dark won't stop the light from getting through? We do. Do you wish that you could see it all made blue? We do. As all creation groaning is a new creation coming. Is the glory of the Lord to be the light within our midst? Is it good that we remind ourselves of this? Is anyone worthy? Is anyone whole? Is anyone able to break the seal and open the scroll? The Lion of Judah, who conquered the grave, he is David's root and the Lamb who died to ransom the slain. Is he worthy? Is he worthy of all blessing and honor and glory? Is he worthy of it? He is. Does the Father truly love us? He does. Does the Spirit move among us? He does. And does Jesus our Messiah hold forever those he loves? He does. Does our God intend to dwell again with us? He does. Is anyone worthy? Is anyone whole? Is anyone able to break the seal or open the scroll? The Lion of Judah, who conquered the grave, he is David's root and the Lamb who died to ransom the slain. From every people and tribe, every nation and tongue, he has made us a kingdom and priests to God, to reign with the Son. Is he worthy? Is he worthy of all blessing and honor and glory? Is he worthy? Is he worthy? Is he worthy of this? He is. Is he worthy? Is he worthy? He is. Thank you, Lord. Thank you for getting us to this point now where we can focus on people much more. Please remind us, Lord, that again, people, that's what matters. And that's what you died for people. And we need to love people better. We really do. And we need not be so afraid to share truth in a loving way, to draw people to Christ. Not to hit them over the head, but to draw them to Christ through our actions that requires good character, godly character, and through knowledge and wisdom that we all need to grow in, Lord. And also with boldness that help us, Lord, to take it so much more seriously than we ever have before. To really be concerned for people's souls and for eternity. Help us to be diligent, Lord, to invite people to church next weekend, and please let it be a fruitful endeavor. And thank you so much for this evening. Pray for protection over us, and you bless us, Lord. In Jesus' name.